Welcome to Business Reporter's The Future Customer Campaign, hosted by The Telegraph Online. I'm Rachel Hicks. Marketers, product developers, customer acquisition teams all want to understand their audience better. It seems like that in 2017, when petabytes of information flow through myriads of digital channels, data gathering cannot challenge any of them. True, gathering information cannot test their prowess, but the quick and accurate interpretation of data still remains the holy grail of any service provider or product manufacturer, retailer or merchant. What makes this quest so difficult? This is what we're going to explore with Mark Lindsay from Experian. Mark, thank you for joining us.
Hello.
When we look at the key to success in this area, we're looking at customer behaviour. But what is behaviour? How do we define it in this context?
Yeah, customer behaviour is clearly a key success criteria. But actually, we would say that's much more than behaviour. Online behaviour is about understanding somebody's journey through web pages and websites and using that information to help us deliver relevant information and relevant communication to an individual. But actually, I think there's more to it than that, and it's more about understanding who that individual is. And just to bring that to life a little bit, if we take, for example, a student who has a passion and an interest in high-performance cars, and they're online and they're looking at websites with expensive cars, does that mean that we can understand from that behaviour that actually they're in the market for expensive cars, expensive goods and services, and should we target them in that way? Well, probably not, because they don't have the wherewithal to buy those products. So understanding who they are is as valuable as understanding what they're doing online.
Okay, so what kind of data do we need to be able to profile that customer and understand their behaviour?
Yeah, so there's different types of data available at different times. And it's important that, I think more data, the better in terms of really getting an understanding. But if you think about an online environment, then the data is quite sparse and we don't have a lot of information available. Whereas if we look at the purchase data that maybe a customer has spent with an organization over a long period of time, then that's rich seam of data that we can understand to maybe predict future behavior and, if you like, their lifetime value to that brand.
Data, however, really is just a series of zeros and ones. What's really crucial is the actionable knowledge, what we actually can do with it. So how does Experian interpret the data?
There's no point in investing huge time and effort in big data analytics and getting insights from that and then doing nothing with it. So it has to be actionable. What Experian have done is invest in integrating our data and insight and the segments that we create with the marketing channels themselves to make sure that that data can be actionable and consistently actionable across all of the different channels.
So tell me more about segmentation. How does it work and how does it help pinpoint the right target audience?
Yeah, Experian have been working in segmentation for a long time and now got segmentation live in about 26 countries across the globe, covering billions of individuals. If we bring this to the UK from a focus perspective, then what our segmentation and our key segmentation mosaic does is it classifies individuals and households in the UK and puts them into groups and types of similar people so that we can better understand the likely behaviour and the likely propensities of people that sit inside that segment. The activation of those segments in the digital environment really makes sure that that insight is actionable.
So can you give me an example of how it would work?
Within Mosaic, one of the segments that we've got in the UK is a segment called Bank of Mum and Dad. And these are households where mum and dad have got a grown-up child, a reasonable affluent household, but because of the economic conditions in the UK, the grown-up child is 23, 24, finished university but has not left home and are still leveraging the bank of mum and dad, as it were. For advertisers, that's a really interesting dynamic to understand. If you're an automotive organization, for example, the different car buying behaviours of the mum and dad will be different from the son or daughter. Mum and dad might want an expensive saloon. The son or daughter might be interested in a cheap and cheerful runabout. So understanding that dynamic through segmentation is really important.
You mentioned, and I know that sometimes we pay double for data. So why and when do we double our costs?
The main challenge with this is around the world of programmatic advertising and real-time bidding, where essentially what we have is both publishers and media owners investing in data and paying for data to enhance the inventory and the audiences that they've got available. But then also advertisers are doing the same. They're actually pulling together data, both their own but also third-party data, to create an understanding of who they would like to communicate with. So that's both ends of the spectrum, investing separately. And then we have this job of matching those two audiences together. So it's an inefficient process at the moment.
So you're using the science to try and find the right audience. So how does segmentation work in that case?
One of the things which we'll do is we'll look at bringing together first-party data, so understanding who those consumers are, what they've done in the past, and then combining it with segmentation to add additional colour and additional insight on those individuals. We then bring that into the advertising world, and a key investment and focus that Experian have done recently is getting the data to be actionable at the point of interaction. So instead of two separate audiences being built, it's pulling together and actually injecting the data in real time at the point of interaction. And that brings both more relevant marketing, but also cost efficiencies in the advertising process.
So is there going to be a time when we're going to have an individual experience?
From a technology and a capability perspective, that would feasibly be possible today. And in certain one-to-one channels, you do have that. The thing that will slow us in getting there is consumer acceptance of what they might perceive to be intrusive messages. So actually segmentation works really well there, because what you're doing is you're building like-minded audiences together and grouping them together and marketing to them in a more comfortable way, but still getting that market effectiveness. So I think we might get there in the long term, but it will be as a result of consumers being more comfortable, but also seeing the value of relevant marketing.
So that's fascinating. So humans are holding back the data and the science that we could give them just because we perhaps don't find it a good thing. We don't want it.
All those elements need to work together. So consumers and individuals have to trust it, have to see value, have to get relevant right message at the right time. But at the same time, the economics of it needs to work. So advertisers need to see effective marketing. And of course, all of that within a solid regulatory environment, so everything is safe and secure.
So this is your chance to glance into the future now. How do you see the commercial use of data science, perhaps say in the next 5 years?
I think we'll see a continuation of what's happening now. So the consistent use of data across multiple channels to deliver a more consistent experience for consumers. So when you go on your mobile, when you look at your social site, when you're watching TV, you're getting consistent messages from brands with consistent offers. And also I think what will happen is we'll get more real-time feedback that then data science can use to create more relevant and more responsive messages in a marketing environment. So it's exciting times.
Mark, we've talked about many things in the last few minutes, but if you were to summarise and perhaps highlight 2 or 3 key points, what would they be?
The first thing for advertisers and brands is know your audience. Invest in understanding who your customers are and who are the prospects, if you like, that you need to target. Secondly would be segmentation is a fantastic way of doing that. It's a great way of actually comparing your audience with the rest of the UK and doing that in depth in a very productive way. And then the third thing is, once you've done that, is applying that consistently across all marketing channels and really taking advantage of the data and the insight that's available.
Great. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.